So my entire ethos, if you will, is to bring the resources and expertise of a media company, because that's my fluency, to bring the expertise and resources of a media company to people, brands, and campaigns who may not have that full set of structure or resources.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously, where money truths take center stage with reality. Making a return to Living Not So Fabulously is the one and only Tony Morrison. Tony is a three-time Emmy Award-winning producer and former GLAAD communications director who now leads Morrison Media Group, his next-gen media and impact studio. He helps brands and changemakers tell stories with heart, purpose, and sparkle, proving, as Tony says, your story is your greatest currency. Welcome to the
Hi,
show,
guys.
Tony.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course, of course. So since we last talked with you, I think about a year ago almost, you left GLAAD and you launched Morrison Media Group. A lot of people would love to quit their job today and go to another job or launch their own company, but the economy is scary. The job market's even scarier. Who knows what's going on with the White House administration? How did you find the courage to leap? And what did you do to actually get yourself to the point where you could say, I'm going to take this bold move?
I'm so fortunate to have a really amazing relationship with my current, or not, my now former employer. And, I think that we just came to a realization that I wanted to do a little bit more that was outside the scope or focus of GLAAD's amazing work in media representation for queer people, and queer stories. And I think storytelling is at the heart of what I do and what this business is all about. And we came to somewhat of an arrangement, an agreement for me to be something of an agent of GLAAD in the field, but to be able to have the freedom to do what I wanted to do, my passion projects, perhaps without the red tape, which you'll find at any employer anywhere. Just to go out and do the things I love, and work with the groups and communities that I really care about.
So if you're just tuning in, this is Living Not So Fabulously, where real money stories make the best reality TV. We're speaking with Emmy Award-winning and newly minted entrepreneur, Tony Morrison. I want to dive a little bit deeper in because you live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. You live in a very capitalist consumer society. Everything in your life, our lives, requires money. So how were you able to prepare yourself to take such leap, not just necessarily to launch your company, but yourself financially, personally, to be able to say, I'm not going to miss the rent payment for the next few months if I take this leap?
Yeah. I have to say, I have to give a lot of thanks to the team at GLAAD, my now former employer. In those conversations we had over almost a full year, talking about my next steps and what I would love to be doing more, in general, but also what I would have loved to be doing for the organization. We came up with a bit of an exit runway, but we came up with a support structure as well. So there is a little bit of uh, one would call it a retainer, out a few months, out of my exit as well. So I'm still working with them on amazing projects and making sure that I wasn't leaving them high and dry. Obviously, in the nonprofit space, we're such small, agile, effective teams, but they're not big corporate media teams, So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't leaving them high and dry. And for what I'm building, there is a runway for creating a product or service that I think a GLAAD or other nonprofits in this space will definitely use and become a future client. So there was a bit of a handshake and a handoff there. So I was very fortunate to navigate through that. But to be honest, I have a lot of friends. And I've been really fortunate, and I will use the word blessed here, to I've not even had the opportunity to put out a call for RFPs or creators, or creatives to help me with things. I've had a lot of influx of people coming in. Obviously, a lot of people with a lot of questions, and I'm like, I have the same questions. We're gonna figure it out together. But today, as of this conversation, right now in real time, I have four, hopefully five clients, happening right now, just a month out from launching. So I'm good, and it's a very diverse portfolio of folks who need um, content and storytelling help. So my entire ethos, if you will, is to bring the resources and expertise of a media company, because that's my fluency, to bring the expertise and resources of a media company to people, brands, and campaigns who may not have that full set of structure or resources. So my 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 3-step method, um, uh, sort of pipeline right now is to help someone or a brand discover their story, and then we activate a network to be able to tell that story, basically hiring all my friends here, and then creating impact with that story in that network. So that's my 3-step model. It's nothing truly groundbreaking, but I think that there's a lot of conversations out there with like corporate gatekeeping and leadership structures and media, legacy media structures, especially changing. And there's all of these creatives, millennials, I will say too, all these creatives in waiting who are ready to lead and ready to rock and roll and who need these opportunities. The Red Lobster CEO conversation of it all is an excellent example to
Yes.
illustrate, what happens when we let new leadership in who are ready to rock and roll. So there's a lot of layers to how and why and when, with the business that I'm building here, but it's around enhancing story and creating impact with that story with, but again, not groundbreaking, but I think it's storytelling and impact for people, whether it is communications or media relations or live productions. That heart, I think, gets lost in us, especially in the media conversation, the content conversation today. So I want to bring a little bit of that back and bring some of the folks who are on the same wavelength into that conversation as well.
So let's dive into that a little bit. As David quoted you earlier, you said that your story and your experiences are your currency. What exactly does
Yeah.
that mean? What does that mean to a layperson?
Well, I think I love that I sighed when I said that, because I that's such that has such weight to me, to say your story is your currency. And I when I was sharing that in the last conversation, I really was meaning that in a literal way, to where I think we get stuck on selling the value of a product or service that we are providing, when the reality is we forget our why in that. And when your why is front and center, when my client's why is front and center, that thesis, if you will, we can always come back to that if we get a little bit lost in, hiring too many people, or overcorrecting in a story, or overcorrecting in a market service. I think that when you have that why locked and loaded, that's your true currency. You can always come back to that. And that's the one thing that no one can take from you, is your story. So I think that that is your currency in a literal, philosophical, metaphorical way. I just love thinking about it through that lens, because it keeps you grounded, especially in this entrepreneurial experience that you might be thinking about or having or stepping into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many today, especially today, I think when people think of entrepreneurship, they oftentimes think, and I think especially in PR, so correct me if I'm wrong, it's a lot of it's going to have a big digital presence, right? You're going to be on social media. You might have your own podcast. You might be on YouTube and whatnot. What exactly does that look like for your company and how you're helping your clients?
So I've touched every sort of medium in the space. And again, tapping on my corporate media experience, have helped launch a lot of these new media spaces. So I think for all of the drama that is happening in the social media space and the leadership in said spaces, just take your platform pick. I think Pinterest is the most unindictable platform right now. I'll just say that they're here.
That's a
Um,
tweet if we used to do tweetables.
but yeah, I think these are the conversations too I have with clients coming in. Not just the typical who is your audience, but what are you actually trying to say? So it's trying to navigate the narrative and messaging out to the right platform that fits that client, from vibe to the actual words they are trying to say and the people they're trying to reach. I had a conversation with I have two queer authors in my portfolio. I'm helping them with press. And the conversation around that too I had with them is, I can do the traditional PR for you, but what I would love to bring as part of this experience is creating experiences, number one, around your story, around your book, your product, if you will. But also, where can we go? What more stories can we tell with the story you are bringing to the market or to the world? Can we make a digital podcast series where you already doing well on platforms? And this author that I spoke with this week, trying to revamp their social identity and their digital footprint and wanting to get into YouTube when we were talking about that. Um, so I was like, let's start with shorts first because we're doing great on the TikTok. Let's navigate and move in gradually and nail down that area before we move into the full YouTube experience, and have some learnings there before we go into that again, that full experience. But it's really having that conversation with yourself, doing a self audit, if you will, and knowing that you don't have to go all in with everything at the same time. Pick
Yeah.
one, do it well, and then evolve that space.
Yeah, that's so smart. I think so often, I think brands, especially individuals, when they start their own businesses, they just want to dive into all the social media platforms all the time,
All the
and they want to
things.
do it
Yeah.
all of it the same way, as if Facebook is the same as Instagram, as is TikTok and Twitter. It can be a mess.
I will say
Hold that
too,
thought.
as yeah, like launching this business and this model, I think that um, an interesting thing that I've done is I'm not delivering, a brick and mortar to the space or market. I'm not delivering a newsroom or an outlet, a publisher, and I'm not. I could be, but I'm not delivering a specific product or service to the market. I want it to be very dynamic, as media is dynamic, stories are dynamic, and to be honest, like how we tell stories in this quarter is 110% going to be very different how we tell stories and talk to people in the next 2, 3, or 4 quarters plus. So I'm also learning because I'm part of this network structure that I have also is tapping into folks who might have been laid off from uh, network media or other outlets. There's a huge shift for journalists right now and independent media, the Substack of it all. So I am sort of in this listening posture and seeing what people need, seeing what folks are looking for, and then having the conversations with network executives and seeing how that space is changing and what they're looking for and how they're wanting to tell stories. And that's another endless conversation with mergers and acquisitions these days. But it's a dynamic business, and I want to keep this dynamic and agile to stay lean and smart.
I love that. One moment, Tony. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously. We're back talking with producer, writer, media consultant, and now a founder of the Morrison Media Group, Tony Morrison. So I want to dive more into Morrison Media Group. You've described your business as an evolving, multidisciplinary business. What does that mean exactly to you?
It's all the things that I am. Well, um, it's interesting because it's not just one thing, but it's grounded with me as a brand and my ethos. I think I've used that word already a couple of times in this podcast. The ethos is sort of my word right now of just bringing it home as I build to figure out the quote unquote right answer to that question. And I've always been about accountability and telling stories. And it's interesting to me with the conversations I've had to folks how much need there is in terms of just guidance and handholding. I think what I'm trying to do isn't exactly new to the market or groundbreaking. I think a distinguishing factor is I'm helping to bring access to folks, access to resources that maybe people felt are gate kept from them. There's a lot of choice out there in terms of storytelling and training and um, professional development. But this is my opportunity to sort of unpack a little bit and share a lot of it, my experience from storytelling in corporate media.
Yeah, I think that I appreciate that you're talking about storytelling. When I think back to some of the beginning days of personal finance in blogs, especially, a lot of it was, and well, I think blogs in general, it was people telling their stories, which what was it attracted people to those platforms. And then over time, obviously, they've changed. Now that we have AI coming in and AI is being used in so many different facets of people's work. The story, their personal story, their personality is maybe getting whitewashed or maybe even sidestepped altogether. And so without that, what do we connect with? We have to it's either we're connecting with a product that we actually love or we're connecting with a person or a brand that we love. And so I think for a lot of folks, especially if you don't have a physical product, if you are the product, your story is the product, you've got to get out there and really be able to highlight and tell that. So I appreciate you're really leaning into that because I think many people might feel like that part of themselves is getting technologied away. I know that's not a word, but technology is starting to disappear their true
You're
stories.
both making up your own words today.
Yeah,
I love it. We're very inventive here on this podcast.
exactly.
No, I this this puts me in the hot seat a little bit because I am an embracer of AI. I I I want people to understand that AI must be used as a collaborator, not a
Hmm.
replacement. Especially for the solopreneur space. Um, Obviously, there are so many advantages to um, paying AI to buy back your time, but not your creativity is my big thing here. Um, so would I love to build an agent or hire someone to build an agent to go through my email or to literally go through and automate conversations for lead generation for a handoff for me? 100%. Do I put a bunch of notes into GPT to help flesh out a press release? 100%. I do that for productivity, but never would I ever myself or recommend pulling something, copy paste, and sending it out as done in final or to a client. So all this to say, the best way I've explained it to folks is to, especially in the creative spaces and the publicity spaces where there's a lot of the busy work and a lot of words, I like to say. I like to treat the AI as a junior staffer. Yeah, explaining it very well. You have the exact outcomes of what you need. You tell it where to go get information. So if you treat it in that way, you resolve a lot of those issues with the prompts and verifying information. And that way you have a really good place to start to be able to blend in your story, your reality, and your creativity with your brand.
But I'm curious, how do you balance that with everybody wants to be an influencer today, and there's a risk with putting too much of yourself out there. So, how do you balance that being authentic with AI, but also not putting too much of yourself out there, especially in this world where, I mean, almost every day we get trolled from people who just don't like our message or don't like the fact that we exist. And that helps the algorithm, which is great, but it also can kind of steal something as well. How do you balance all that?
I've had to again do an audit in this arena as well because truthfully, I never wanted to be on camera. Yeah, I loved living on the other side of that in production. I loved script writing. I loved running scripts to anchors on set. I just really love that world and that space. And it's so funny, like when I would in those moments be in front of camera to do whatever story or a news read, I would always get just really nervous and very uncomfortable when the lights would come on. And we're friends and I'm very bubbly and I'm very active, so it was very fascinating to me that when the lights came on, I got nervous. But I'm revisiting this space a little bit and I'm having to do a self audit and really figure out what is it, what is a value from me that people need to hear. So it's a little bit departed from just moving through and asking, what do people want from me? And it's what do I want people to see and hear from me? So I use that as a bit of a guidepost to ensure and enhance what I'm saying and to make sure that if I'm going to go the distance and put myself out there in a vulnerable space, that it's going to be done correctly, authentically, and done right in a way that's useful and has value for folks who are watching. So that, and I'm just like not posting Instagram stories as much of like my martini glasses. It's fine. The people don't need to know. They don't need to know.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. We appreciate you coming back on the show, and best of luck to Morrison Media Group. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to see, scan the QR code to follow Yahoo Finance Podcast for more videos and expert insights, because when you do, you put your financial security on the spotlight for a grand show. And until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.